Hi everyone, I'm Fia Fastbinder and welcome to Moxie Talk, where we help you find your voice, share your message, and lead with confidence. Now, before we go into some techniques for assertive communication, if you are watching us on YouTube, make sure to press that alert button and subscribe to our channel so you get notified of all the great content we're putting out there. Welcome to another video in our series of videos on assertive communication. Now, as I've stated before, assertive communication is conveyed through your messaging, but it is also conveyed through your verbal and non-verbal communication techniques. Now, considering the work I do as an executive speaker coach to some of the world's most confident and assertive communicators, I want to spend some time in this video on my 3 go-to delivery pointers on how to use your voice and your body for assertiveness. Before we dive into the actual tips, let's begin with a concept that I call the happy warrior. Now, the happy warrior is this concept that great leaders convey a combination of strength and warmth. Now, they lead with warmth and follow with strength. Why? Because people need to trust their leader before they follow them. Now, this applies so well to assertive communication. Now, if you think about how we are delivering this message, if we use the happy warrior approach of demonstrating both strength and warmth without showing aggression or even passiveness on the other side, we'll bring the listener's guard down or the person we're delivering this message to, and they will hear us. Aggression will cause the person to go into defense mode, while passiveness, on the other hand, will make them feel ignored or maybe seem to be meek. So if we show too much strength up front, our messenger will shut off. But if we show too much warmth up front, we run the risk of not being taken seriously. So you can see how this balance of strength and warmth is not only different for all of us, but will take some practice to get it right, and to get it right in a way that feels genuine and authentic to you. I'll give you an idea of how this breaks down and how this can work for you. Eye contact and a smile demonstrate warmth in our body language, while a firm handshake and confident, open body language demonstrates strength. So you can see how using all of these techniques in combination would lend assertiveness to the message we're delivering to our listener. With that in mind, let's begin with some vocal exercises that you can use to make sure that you are delivering your message with assertiveness. Now, when I speak about using your voice with assertiveness, I like to use the term vocal executive presence. We've all heard of executive presence, and people that have executive presence have mastered the art of assertive communication. So vocal executive presence is the way your voice either amplifies or undermines your message of executive presence and assertiveness. I'll give you some examples. Imagine 2 speakers with the exact same script. One speaker mumbles, speaks slowly, doesn't have any vocal variety. The other speaker speaks with projection, with warmth in their voice. They pause, they emphasize at all the right places. Which speaker are you going to listen to? Of course, the second, because their voice is demonstrating vocal executive presence. Now, there are 3 go-to techniques that I use to make sure that speakers are conveying vocal executive presence with their voices. And typically, I use these techniques when I see some vocal traits that are undermining their message of executive presence. For example, speaking too softly can undermine your executive presence. Speaking too quickly can undermine your executive presence. speaking in a high pitch or a high register, which happens to a lot of women when we get nervous. This undermines our executive presence. And a quivering voice definitely undermines our executive presence. And I know if you recognize one of these vocal traits, it is incredibly frustrating and it feels somewhat powerless to change. But there are techniques that you can use to change all of these so that your voice matches your message of assertiveness. So let's unpack my top 3. First, watch your tone of voice. The self-control and the gravitas that I mentioned in my previous videos is absolutely necessary here. Your voice needs to be relaxed and calm, yet also convey strength and groundedness. Now, this can take some time, just like any new skill. So be patient with yourself and don't get annoyed if you end up raising your voice without even realizing it or coming off as too harsh because you're irritated. Keep practicing, try again. Eventually, this will be part of the way you communicate. Now, assertive behavior also means not showing hesitation or even questioning through your voice. This will cause your listener to question your authority and even possibly discredit your assertive message. So here's a tone exercise that demonstrates the difference that tone can make. And I'm often told by clients that they have one tone of voice, and then I introduce this exercise, and it really shows how many different tones of voice they have. I want you to imagine that you are saying, I have something to say. You notice there I said it with almost no tone of voice. I have something to say. But now I want you to imagine that you are saying this as if you are delivering good news, and you can decide who the messenger, who the receiver of this message is. It could be your team, it could be a client, it could be a family member. You are delivering good news, and all you can say is, I have something to say. And go ahead and say it out loud now. Now imagine on the flip side of that, you are delivering bad news to that client or that team or those family members. And again, you can only say, I have something to say. And say it out loud and think about how different you sounded when you are delivering bad news than good news. And then the third tone is imagine that same team or those same family members or that same client, and they are not listening to you. They are too busy talking, they're distracted, and you say, I have something to say this time to get their attention, and go ahead and say it out loud. And you will notice again how different you sound there. So tone can make a huge difference in the way we deliver our message, but we have to make sure that our tone matches the message. So if our message is one of assertiveness, if our message is one of showing strength and warmth, we need to make sure our tone matches this. And one easy way to do this is to think of a person in your life that you use that assertive yet non-aggressive tone with. For me, it's my kids. There are many times when I have to tell my kids a rule that they don't agree with, and I need to say it in a way that's not going to put them in on defense. I need to not raise my voice, yet let them know that I am strong and that they are not going to push me over, and yet still loving and caring. So it could be your kids, maybe your pets when you're training your pets, whoever this person is in your life, and practice imagining that person and practice the tone that you need to have assertive communication. My second go-to vocal tips for assertive communication is to breathe. Diaphragmatic breathing, or what we call breath support, adds power to your voice by making it deeper for both men and women and more rich and resonant, and louder. But it won't sound harsh or like you're screaming. In fact, breath support is the only way to add volume to your voice. So if you come off as too quiet, or when you get nervous, you get soft, this is the technique for you. Coming off as too quiet when you're delivering your message of assertiveness could be seen as meek, which will not help you demonstrate your executive presence. Also, If your voice tends to go into a high pitch or a head register when you're nervous, this happens to a lot of women, then this is a key technique for you to learn. Now let me unpack and explain breath support to you. Oftentimes when I am explaining breath support, I use a sushi visualization. Now, if you can imagine sushi or nigiri more specifically, it is fish with rice underneath, right? Now imagine that fish is your voice and the rice is your breath and you are supporting your voice with breath. This is breath support. And this is exactly what we're doing when we want to have powerful, resonant voices. And there is a rather simple technique that you can use to make sure that you are accomplishing this. And it is called diaphragmatic breathing. Now, your diaphragm is a sheath of muscle that sits between your chest and your abdomen. And its whole purpose in your body is to push extra air into your lungs. Now, for most of us, our diaphragms lay dormant because we don't need it in our day-to-day communication. When we get nervous, not only does our diaphragm lay dormant, but it tightens up because all of our muscles in our body are constricting. And when your diaphragm tightens up, you cannot get enough breath out to have a powerful voice. So what we really need to do is relax our diaphragm and use it to support our breath. So we push all that extra air into our lungs and out our mouths so that we have deep, rich, resonant voices. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to ask you to put your hand on your belly, actually not your belly, put your hand on the place where you feel your breath rising and falling, or your belly pushing out and pushing in. Now, you can do this at home. Nobody can see you, or in your office. And now feel that rising and falling sensation. Welcome to your diaphragm. Now, I want you to imagine that inside your diaphragm or inside your belly, you have this giant red balloon. And every time you breathe in, that balloon fills up with air and your belly pushes out. And every time you breathe out, all that air comes out your diaphragm, your belly goes towards your belly button, and all that air comes out your mouth and your balloon deflates. So this is diaphragmatic breathing. We also call this horizontal breathing, as you can see, because we're breathing in and out, not up and down. So why is this so important? Now, your diaphragm sits right here. So if you're scrunching like this, you cannot get enough length in your diaphragm to really harness all of that air. Also, if you've ever seen a picture of your lungs, you notice that you have two sets of lungs. You have your upper lungs and your lower lungs. Your lower lungs are actually the biggest, most oxygen-rich part of your lungs. So when you incorporate your diaphragm, you push it out, all that air goes into those bottom lungs, it comes out your top lungs, and it comes out your mouth. So this is why this is horizontal breathing, also called belly breathing, also called diaphragmatic breathing. Actually, I don't care what you call it. Here's how you're going to do it. Put your hands on your belly, breathe in, feel that balloon fill up with air. And then on your exhale, I want you to say, hey. And notice when you say, hey, all that air comes out your mouth and your hand goes in towards your belly button. If this is not happening for you, if you are holding your breath and your belly doesn't move at all, and it sounds like this, hey, or you're doing this and heaving your chest out and up to get the breath and going, hey, none of these are going to give you the kind of vocal executive presence that you want when you are doing your assertive communication. So when you breathe in and your belly goes out horizontally, then on your exhale say, hey. Can you hear the difference in my voice? If this is still really difficult for you, I highly recommend you lay down on your back. I know how ridiculous this sounds, but when you do that, you will naturally fall into diaphragmatic breathing. And if you want extra brownie points, put a heavy book or a computer on your belly, not your desktop, your laptop, and breathe in and feel your computer or your book push out and breathe out and feel it going in. You will really make sure that you're doing this technique correctly. So once you have mastered just breathing in and out using your diaphragm, now it's time to make sure that we say this on words. So you're going to breathe in, and I want you to say, hey, you. And really imagine that assertive voice that is bouncing off the wall in front of you or the window in front of you and coming right back to you. Now I want you to say, you heard me breathe in, hey, you over there. And notice that I spoke on the exhale. We always speak on the exhale. And then you're going to breathe in and you're going to say, hey, you over there, get off of my cloud. And you might find by cloud you are out of breath, and this is absolutely okay. Now, I know how ridiculous this seems, but there is absolutely 100% no other way to get a powerful, rich, resonant voice that doesn't shake, doesn't quiver, doesn't run out of breath than doing breath support exercises. It is literally the only way. So if you can keep your why in mind, hopefully it will push you through some uncomfortable exercises. Now, if you are running out of breath, coming off too quiet, or going into your head register, breath support will fix all of these vocal problems. All you have to do is breathe in. On your exhale, breathe out and say your words, and practice, practice, practice. I guarantee that it will make sure that you eliminate all of these vocal habits that are undermining your assertiveness. My third go-to tip for assertive communication is for all of you whose voice quivers when you're nervous and you have something important or difficult to say. Now, this I know is the most powerless, nervous feeling because you don't know if it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how badly it's going to happen, if it's going to stop. And there's nothing worse than needing to communicate assertively, asking for a raise or telling somebody that you can't do something, and your voice starts to quiver. So this technique will literally stop that quivering in its tracks, and it builds on the diaphragmatic breathing exercise that I taught you previously. And again, it's just as silly, but this works. Now, why does your voice quiver? It quivers because your vocal cords, which are also known as vocal folds, their whole purpose in your body is to stop you from drowning, to stop water from going into your lungs. And obviously, this is a really important purpose. But your vocal folds don't know the difference between stress because you're drowning and stress because you're asking your boss for a raise. They just know stress. So anytime they feel under duress, they shut. And when they shut, you can't use all that beautiful breath support that you just learned, and the little air that's there causes your voice to quiver. So, how do we get around this? Here's how we do it. There is a technique that we can use to tell our vocal cords that everything's cool, they can relax, they are just fine, and here's how it works. You are going to put your index finger 2 inches away from your mouth. This is not the silly part. The silly part is now you are going to think of the sound you made as a kid when you were pretending to be a ghost. It probably sounded like this. Ooh. And you're going to do that sound, but while you're doing it, you are going to pay attention to your breath support, meaning you are going to breathe in, fill up that balloon in your belly, and on your exhale, you are going to make that ghost sound. And the reason your finger is here is you should feel all that beautiful air coming out on your finger, right? So it goes like this. Breathe in, breathe out. Ooh. And you're going to do that 5 to 10 times, hopefully not in front of your boss. And this will absolutely relax your vocal cords so that it doesn't quiver. Now, if you hear your voice quivering the first couple of times you do this, keep going. Again, this is an exercise. You might have to only do it 5 times. You might have to do it 10 times. You might have to do it 20 times until those dang vocal cords relax. I know this is silly, but it really works. And if you came backstage at any TED event that I was coaching for, you would see my speakers doing all sorts of silly things with their voices, from ghost exercises to scales to breathing exercises to speaking to walls, saying, hey, you over there, get off of my cloud, which, by the way, is a Rolling Stones song that I never told you before. So, this concludes the end of our video on how to use your voice to make sure you are amplifying your message of assertive communication. Hopefully you found this valuable. If you did, please subscribe to our channel. Please like it. Please share it with anyone you think would also find it valuable. Until next time, don't forget to live brilliantly, lead boldly, and speak with moxie.